A graduate from London College of Fashion, she started Heart to Heart in 2012 to tell stories through clothes. Heart to Heart gives life to waste fabrics by turning them into beautiful products. What happens to fabric that doesn't make the cut? Here at Heart to Heart, waste isn't discarded, it's redesigned. So, introducing you to the team that's reimagining the rules of fashion. Meet Karishma Shahani Khan.
Hi,
Hi.
thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming here. We're just going to go over some questions, but before that, would you like to introduce yourself?
So my name is Karishma Shahani Khan and I have a label called Ka-Sha. We're based in Pune. We've been functioning since 2012, so we've been around for quite some time. Heart to Heart is our sister label, as I like to call it, which started at the same time as Ka-Sha. So essentially, Ka-Sha made the clothes, which are very focused on craft and textiles. And Heart to Heart was our solution to what to do with the waste that Ka-Sha was creating. So really, it was about not disposing of things, not throwing away remnants, but really about how can we bring them back into the system. So they both are like, they both need each other and they both feed off each other.
Yeah.
And so it's a very cyclic system and sisterhood.
Yeah.
So that's who we are.
I think sister brand is like the perfect explanation. So you briefly mentioned why Heart to Heart was created, but was this a more professional decision or was it a more personal decision?
I think that it was just an obvious decision. Like for me, there was, people ask me this very often. They're like, but why did you start it? Like, what was the thing that you were trying to like do, or any specific time? I believe that in India, we've always really been very sustainable. I don't like that word very much because I feel like right now it's really misused a lot. But that is what people understand. So for the, we will use that word. But I think India has always been sustainable. I think everything that we've done, our grandparents have done, the way they've lived, T-shirts have become pochas to wipe the floor. Saris have been kept for like years. My grandmother's sari is something that I wore for my sister's wedding. My sari is also, when I buy them, or the jewelry is always like, oh, for my son or for my family. So we've always had this inherent idea of buying heirlooms and using them as heirlooms and then passing them on. That means we're always very, very used to very good quality, right? Only quality things actually last the test of time. And on the other side, if something is not working the way it used to, we find a solution on how we can make it work for something else. So I think it's a very inherent quality to our subcontinent.
Yeah.
So when I started the brand, even in college, my final collection, was a blend of new textiles as well as discarded material. So everything that I was creating in the collection, to the discarded parts of it, I was using it for product. Or for example, I was sourcing like secondhand shoes and secondhand like heels and secondhand sneakers and cutting them, putting them together to make a new shoe. So I think it's been an inherent part of who I am. So it just made sense that is how the brand would continue.
Yeah.
The reason why I've named them separately and kept them as two separate brands is a business decision. And that is because I want people to have utmost clarity on when they're buying a Heart to Heart product, it is 100% upcycled. When I say 100% upcycled, I mean that it really comes from waste. It comes from small bits and pieces of leftover pattern cutting, after we pattern cut. It's coming from, something that's probably damaged. But it's never coming from like, say, even a half-meter fabric, because half-meter for me is not waste fabric.
Yeah.
It can be very well used to make anything, like even a blouse. But essentially calling them Heart to Heart and Ka-Sha was simply because when a person comes to Ka-Sha, they know what they're getting and there's no confusion. Is this upcycled? Is this not upcycled? So if you're coming to Heart, it's 100% upcycled.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why they have two separate identities.
Yeah. I really like the point that you brought up about the sustainable word being misused and how India has always been like this.
At the moment, like even with Ka-Sha, we've been toying with the idea of making our own paper for some time. There are lots of options I know in the market where you can buy like paper from waste and fabric, etc. But it was very important for us to do like what can we do with really small pieces that we can't really use in our product. So we also have another technique in Heart to Heart where we use really like miniature, like this much ka pieces also. But then there was also like thread, like shreds that were really not being used. So we've now converted that into paper and we use our own paper for our own packaging. And as we speak, like the idea is not about, we're not trying to like tick mark a checklist saying, abhi ye bhi karna, I have to do this. It's really about, that is just the next logical step.
That I think it looks like it's in your DNA and it makes so much sense that you have a full brand dedicated to this. Do you think the fashion industry was ready for Heart to Heart in 2012 when it launched?
when we launched in 2012, it was like I studied in the UK. So in the UK, there was a lot of conversation about it already, for sure. In India, not as much, because we were still looking at the West as the inspiration of sustainability. So I think when we started in 2012, there was probably us and maybe like one or two other brands who were talking about it very openly. But having said that, I think that also the time of COVID really changed it, because I think people also had a moment to sit down and be in their homes. I mean, I'm not saying COVID was good from any perspective, okay? Like, I'm not
just finding a silver lining.
Yeah, like at that point of time, I think people slowed down and they realized that there is so much that we already have, and there is so much that we can do with what we already have. So I think people slowed down, and when people slowed down, they started realizing, okay, these are solutions, these are options, and I think people started taking more interest in it. So solutions have always existed, like we're saying, like we are just brands who are talking about it. But again, it's been like we've had, people who roam around from house to house, exchanging like bartans for clothes. They have done, like, people make dohars all the time. So it's not a new concept. Nothing that we're talking about is new. It's just that probably we were talking about it on a platform like this. Right? So we luckily had the voice to do it. So was it ready in 2012? I think we've already been practicing it. So obviously at some level we were. But I think post-COVID, there is definitely a lot more interest, because now people are more are more open to it.
If you were to reopen Haat to Haat today, what would you do differently?
So if I had to start the brand again today, I feel like I would do things slightly differently from the perspective of maybe not having so much fear of would it work or would it not? Because you know it works now. Secondly, also I think I would probably take a few more risks than I took when I started it, considering that the market is ready or more set now. But would I want to fast forward and start it today? No, I'm quite happy that we started when we did, because we had a lot of learnings along the way that helped us in general with our design philosophy overall. So yeah.
And now that it's becoming fashion, you guys are ready. And
we're ready.
Years of training. Like, come here.
We're ready,
So Haat to Haat obviously works with patchwork, but what is some other kind of techniques that you use to make your garments?
So patchwork is one part of it. It is probably the low-hanging fruit. We work a lot with macrame. The idea is to create like waste out. We create like these cords out of our waste. We take really small pieces of fabric, put them together, make cords, and then we do macrame. We do like knitting, different techniques that work with the cord. We also do a lot of embroidery with our waste, and that you'll also see on Ka-Sha. But we don't necessarily talk about it as much. And I think that is also probably because the rest of the garment is not upcycled. But the idea of Ka-Sha also is that the way we cut our fabrics and the way we use our fabrics and also the way we source is very circular, from the perspective that it is still very minimal wastage. So what you're seeing here is like the minimal wastage that we are producing. And of course, like in the past, probably we had more. Along the way, we have also learned different things that we have adapted to Ka-Sha. So even Ka-Sha by itself is a very conscious label. Right? It's still cutting in a certain way. It's reusing material in a certain way. A lot of embroidery you see is from the waste that's coming onto the product. So embroidery is also a very large part of what we do. And then of course, like in terms of patchwork also, when we think of patchwork, we're thinking of something very generic in terms of like a certain size or shape. So the idea is also like, how can you go down to like really small pieces? How do you apply that back onto it? So it's still patchwork, but it's not the traditional way you're taking egg piece and joining it. It's probably, onto something else. But also that onto something else is also what we don't just take a virgin fabric and put it onto that. So even the base would be made out of, so maybe one side would be patchwork, but the other side would be like a really small miniature, thing applied onto it. So it's really about pushing ourselves. And I sometimes feel like in Haat to Haat, we have to push ourselves more, because this is what you have. Like this is what you have. You need to work with what you have. But then again, in Ka-Sha also, we work with what we have. If you see the materials we use, it's always fabric on fabric. Maximum we'll use some thread, or we'll use like maybe some mirror. But mostly it is always fabric on fabric. Because I think it also comes from the fact that we live in a city which is not necessarily textile production focused or heavy. So everything that we have to source has to come from somewhere else. So really, honestly, when I'm answering your questions, I feel like it's it's all so interconnected with one another that neither of them can actually function without each other.
But that's just sisters at the end of the day.
Exactly, and my sister is the same for me. So I guess it works because they work because of each other.
Yeah.
And also we would love to take Heart to Heart into like a solution for like more people and try and offer that to more people. So it is not something that we want to exclusively keep for ourselves. But of course, with our current bandwidth, we are doing what we can. But it is an open call if someone wants to do something with their own product and they want us to apply the upcycling techniques on it. We're always happy to do that.
Yeah.
In a collaborative way.
Yeah. Any unconventional or surprising materials you've ended up having to work?
I worked a lot with plastic. A lot with plastic actually, and people used to be like, who's going to buy this? But we actually had some wonderful stores back in the day who would actually sell the product for us. I've worked with onion sacks. So I used to go and source onion sacks from the market, and then I used to bring them back, wash them, clean them, and then I used to weave them with like different kinds of threads, like wool, embroidery thread, ribbons, and create textile. And then I used to make jackets out of them.
That's
we will have a sample upstairs for me to show it to you. But like, that is how Heart to Heart actually began. It began with this absolute love, like what can we upcycle? And I really like wish I could do more of it, and maybe you'll see more of it. But
I think bring the onion sack back.
I think I need to bring the onion sack back. And we really sold a lot of the pieces, but I think it's also about like how can the retail in India support that? And I feel like while we talk about is the audience ready? Like is the retail ready?
Yeah.
Also. And there are obviously like you've got the handful of like stores that come and go. I mean, unfortunately they go, and that's why it's so sad. But who can really do that for you? But I'm really hoping and looking forward to Indian retail being able to sell products for that again. It will be fab.
Yes, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Yes. Do you think Indian fashion is ready for a circular system like this, where they produce and then they use the waste?
I feel like the industry is ready for circularity. I think it already is being practiced very, very, like quite a lot, even by people who don't talk about it necessarily. So I think that this is the time. So even if you're thinking, if anyone's thinking of starting something, will it work, will it not work? I think as long as I'm not saying just go and just make something sustainable and it's going to work.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a lot of stuff that comes with it, but I feel like if there was any time, it is now to do it.
If you could tell every fashion consumer about one thing about textile, what would it be?
Firstly, it's like every fashion consumer is almost everybody on this planet. Like we don't realize that even a person who's, is like probably frowns upon fashion is still waking up every morning deciding what they need to wear.
Yeah,
and they're still
everybody
going
wearing
and doing
clothes.
something.
Yeah.
So when you talk about fashion, I would say like apparel, like it's like all over.
Yeah.
And so I think any consumer of clothing, which is everybody, needs to just be more mindful in how they are purchasing. And not because I want to sit here and preach, but because I feel like really that's how it should be. And I know I keep saying that is how it should be.
No,
and
but that is how it should be.
But that is how it should be,
Yeah,
right?
like,
Because there is so much. Yeah, because there is so much textile waste out there. Textile is one of the second or third largest industries in the world, but it's also equivalent in being a polluter.
Yeah.
We are discarding, we're making, purchasing, discarding at such a rapid rate that it's really sad. Of course, people then ask me that, then even you're making a product, so like what you're also adding to it. So I'm not saying that we're going to stop making product, but can we make them more consciously? And as a consumer, can you just purchase them more consciously?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I don't want to go out of business. I want you to purchase my product, but you're purchasing a product that's going to last you really long.
Yeah.
It's going to be that product that you can pass on through generations. We also offer a mend and repair service.
Yeah.
So when a product reaches a certain age and you feel like, I need to change it, or maybe I want to let it go, you can come back to us. We offer you an option of, buyback. I mean, there's many things that we are trying to do as a brand. So as a consumer, can you
really jump on that
board?
train?
Yeah,
Jump on the train and keep reusing, donating back good quality, I would say.
Absolutely.
That you can use forever. There's no need to discard.
Yeah, and I feel like eventually it is about the consumer, right? If the consumer is going to ask for these things, the brands are going to give it to them.
Yeah.
So then it's going to become like not just me saying, oh, like a random, I'm using this kind of material and that's why I am so sustainable. It needs to, it needs to go down to a lot of different things.
Yeah. I also think that you don't have to just buy staples. You don't have to only buy blacks and whites and blah, blah. You can buy something as colorful as this jacket and style it in your own way.
And there's so many brands out there who are doing really interesting work in the idea of sustainability is a very large topic. I'm talking about upcycling my waste.
Yeah.
There's also other ways to do it. Like, we have another brand that we are working on, and we've kind of like soft launched it, not exactly, but the idea of that one also, we've got a yarn in it, which is, I mean, it's actually a part of what I'm wearing, but there's a yarn in it which is completely upcycled. And the other yarn in it is a very traditional Indian textile, which is Kala cotton. It's the yarn of Kala cotton. And we've woven the two together.
Yeah.
So for me, you're still working with Indian textiles and you're working with traditional methods and you're working with a new age yarn now.
Yeah.
So for me, that is also conscious clothing,
Yeah.
right? So eventually there's not one answer to all of this. There is multiple answers and multiple iterations. So as a consumer, you've got many options. So you can go look for that option. You're not so colorful, fine. Go and wear something which is not as bright. If you are colorful, then fab, come to me. You know what I mean to say? So I really think things are available out there, and people just need to
go look.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for meeting me.
Thank you so much for coming to Pune.
Obviously.